We're going to start on page 1, and that is Bill 46-20. And we have Chief Melissa Hyatt here. She's still with us to speak on Bill 46-20.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present this bill, which is an act concerning school bus monitoring cameras, which was introduced at the request of Baltimore County Executive Olszewski. This bill will make Baltimore County safer for our students as they travel to and from school. It's already illegal under state law to pass a stopped school bus that has its red lights flashing and its stop arms extended, but thousands of drivers are violating that law and putting our children in jeopardy each and every day. The State Board of Education conducts an annual one-day survey asking school bus drivers to count the number of times they are illegally passed in just one day. Last year, half of our drivers participated in that and reported seeing 440 violations in just one day. Doing the simple math, 180 school days, that's over 150,000 times during one school year that a Baltimore County child who stepped out at the wrong time could have been gravely injured by a vehicle illegally passing their school bus, hit and possibly killed by a driver who was ignoring the flashing red lights and the extended stop arms on the sides of the school bus. With 800 school bus routes in Baltimore County, there is no way for the county police to comprehensively enforce this important safety law by observing and stopping all violations. In 2019, in fact, Baltimore County Police only issued 71 citations for this violation. Unfortunately, we know that this is a small fraction of the dangerous and illegal driving that's occurring while our county's children get on and off of school buses. This bill will authorize the Baltimore County Public Schools to install enforcement cameras on the county's fleet of school buses. Other jurisdictions such as Montgomery County, Howard County, and Anne Arundel County have similar measures and models in place for enforcement. Similar to the way that our red light camera and speed camera programs operate, the new external enforcement cameras will photograph vehicles violating the stop requirement, and the police department will review the evidence and issue appropriate citations. A citation issued under the bill may not be considered in the provision of vehicle insurance, is not a moving violation for which points may be assessed, and may not be placed on the driving record of the owner or driver of the vehicle. However, it may be treated as a parking violation for purposes of enforcement. A person who receives a citation by mail may pay the specified civil penalty to the county with jurisdiction or may elect to stand trial in district court. In a contested case, the penalty assessed must be paid to the district court. We anticipate the fine will be $250 per citation. State law provides that from fines collected by a local government, the jurisdiction may recover the costs of implementing school bus monitoring cameras, and further provides that jurisdiction may spend any remaining revenues for public safety. So like the other camera enforcement programs we already operate, the revenue from citations will fund specific equipment and operations. The police department's proposed operating budget for FY 2021 includes $11 million in special fund revenues for this program. On the expense side, the estimated contractual cost for the vendor is $7.7 million. The police department will assign a sergeant and 2 officers to manage the citations for the enforcement program and create a special deployment team consisting of 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants, and 12 officers to address special areas of focus in the Operations Bureau for an estimated cost of $2.2 million, and will budget $1.1 million for school crossing guard operations to greatly reduce the need for utilizing police officers routinely in this role. There is another important feature of this new program that the police department strongly endorses. This new system will also include internal cameras, which will be entirely controlled and managed by the school system. The new cameras will be a significant upgrade from the current internal cameras with immediate remote access to video footage and built-in GPS tracking. These will be very helpful in protecting children during their bus rides. Our school buses currently have internal cameras, but the school system cannot access the camera footage remotely or view it in real time. Having greater video capabilities will help deter victimization of our school children. This will also significantly aid the school system and the police department in conducting investigations, especially where concerns or allegations involving young children or nonverbal children of any age. The school system will be handling the procurement and the contract for the new camera system. Mr. Kenny T. Wise, Assistant Director of the Office of Transportation for the Baltimore County Public Schools, will testify now, and he can provide more details about the planned system. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Hyatt. Madam Chair and members of the Council, The Baltimore County Public Schools is very pleased to collaborate with the Baltimore County Police Department and appreciative of your support and the steps necessary to enable this initiative. I'd like to echo Chief Hyatt's comments about the student safety in and around school buses, which is at the very core of the School Bus Stop Arm Enforcement Initiative. The statistics Chief Hyatt shared regarding the number of driver-reported stop arm violations is just one day is staggering and highly concerning, to say the least. This initiative positions us to address student safety more holistically, as well as change driver behavior in efforts to reduce the number of vehicles illegally passing stop buses. Integral to this initiative is the enforcement of traffic laws prohibiting motorists from passing stop school buses, which, as Chief Hyatt referenced, is impractical for the police department to be able to enforce across 800 school buses daily. So it's important to note that the issuance of violation fines is one of several mechanisms to be used in changing driver behavior. First is proactively educating the motoring public. This takes several forms, such as a period of warnings issued at the beginning of the program's implementation, public service announcements such as televised media broadcasts, as well as print media where appropriate. These communications to the public will again be the result of the collaborative efforts of the selected vendor, the police department, and the school system. Next, as Chief Hyatt mentioned, this initiative introduces additional solutions not currently within the school system software arsenal. Specifically, the new interior cameras to be installed on each school bus transporting Baltimore County school children. The system will serve as a notable upgrade to our current capability. Remaining completely under the purview of appropriate staff within the school system, these high-resolution cameras enable detailed audio and visual observation of school bus activity and enable remote access to each bus. When an incident occurs that is of particular safety concern, we will be able to assist our Department of School Safety and the Police Department in addressing these matters. The final component, not commonly discussed but critically important, is the safety of the vehicle itself. Drivers are required to perform both pre- and post-trip inspections each day before and after a child boards a school bus. A feature of this system's implementation is the electronic record of those inspections and documentation of any bus defects found. The documentation of these daily inspections allows our maintenance team to address defects in a timely manner prior to them becoming larger issues, further undergirding the safety of students on our school buses. So again, it is with pleasure and appreciation for the opportunity to present this bill to our council as the next step in creating a safer experience for our school children. Madam Chair and members of the council, we thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. West. Just for clarity, I just want to make sure, Mr. Boswick, I originally said that this was on page 1, Bill 4620, but this is actually Bill 4720.
Yes, ma'am. It appears that that the police department started with that bill, with the school bus monitoring system bill.
I just wanted to clarify that. So we were on Bill 4720.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that correction.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, are there any questions or comments for 4720 for the chief?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Councilman Jones?
I was curious if the chief could tell me how many tickets did we write last year for running red lights? Or how many tickets did we write for running a stop sign?
We can get that information. I don't have that with me, but we can certainly get that information for you.
So the only reason I ask, I have a tremendous amount of respect for the police officers, the brave men and women who go out and work every day to make us safe. And I certainly would not want to see any kid injured. But when you tell me we wrote 71 tickets last year, and we have 1,900 police officers riding around Baltimore County and 800 buses riding around Baltimore County all day long, I'm just wondering, like, this is such a serious problem, how did it go unnoticed or that the police did nothing about it? Because 71 tickets is like a statistical insignificant number, isn't it? I mean, 71 tickets?
So certainly that's a low number. You know, one of the things that we spoke about just a couple of minutes ago is the fact that right now our officers, there are some days that our police officers between the morning and after the noon are filling in for up to 60, 70 plus spots for crossing guards. So our officers don't have the ability to do enforcement because they're generally filling in for crossing guard positions, which pulls them off the street. And frankly, I would certainly rather have our officers on the street. You know, several months ago, we had a very violent sexual assault over on the east side of a child. And I want my officers out before school and after school dealing with unsafe drivers, dealing with, you know, pedophiles that shouldn't be anywhere near our children that are coming or going to school, not specifically in the role of crossing children. So that is something that we're obviously having other conversations about. And this program would help assist with privatizing that program.
So do you think, this is a philosophical question, do you think privatizing the work of the police is a good thing?
It's not privatizing the work of the police. So right now, we hire crossing guards, and what we would be doing is utilizing a company to privatize that. And the people that are already crossing guards, the citizens, the residents that are already crossing guards would continue to be able to do that through these companies. I think my best analogy, when I was in the private sector and I had private security that worked for me, when we had private security and we had multiple security posts around all of my hospitals, if there was an incident where an officer, a private security officer, didn't come into work, called out sick, the onus was on that company to replace that individual. But that's not what happens right now. So besides the fact that we don't have enough people currently that are hired as crossing guards, we fairly frequently have people that either call out sick or don't come into work. And then because this program completely falls under the police department, we have to fill those spots. We can't let these children get to these intersections and not have someone there to cross them. So we pull officers out of patrol across the county every single school day. We have several precincts that I can discuss offline, but I don't want to do this in an open hearing, that we tremendously impact. And those officers, while it's great for them to interact with those youth, those officers shouldn't be standing stationary crossing children. They should be stopping buses when there are buses, stopping vehicles that are passing buses. They should be engaging with people that shouldn't be interacting with children, and that's really what we want them to focus on. We want them to focus on overall public safety.
Well, thank you so much for the, I was really, I mean, I appreciate the information. I was really concerned about the privatization of, you know, if we're writing 71 tickets and now we're going to hire a firm and pay them $7 million a year to write tickets automatically. Let me ask you a question while we're talking about the crossing guards. To hire a private company to manage that, won't that cost us more money?
Nicole, you have all of the specifics in reference to the privatization costs, correct?
Right. We estimate it would be around 2.2 to 2.5 million. And you're right, Councilman, that is more expensive than what we're currently paying our employees. But I think, as the chief mentioned, the opportunity cost is what we'd be saving. Those officers could then be deployed to do what we pay them to do.
Has anyone thought of maybe paying the crossing guards more money and maybe incentivizing less absenteeism?
Unfortunately, certainly I'm sure that it would help if there was a higher salary, but I will say this, and again, this is the same thing that I experienced when I was dealing with private security. In roles such as that, fairly frequently, there are no-shows, and the other issue is that we haven't even been able to fully fill those spots. So while we're also filling in for absentee rates, for no-shows, we're also filling in for spots that we haven't been able to hire. And certainly, we've done a lot of work to make efforts to do that. I realize that moving forward, it may be easier to do that. But it's a really difficult program for the police department to handle because we can't plan ahead. We find out at 6:30 in the morning or 7 a.m. that all of these crossing guards didn't come into work. And the only thing that we can do, we can't as an agency plan ahead, so we just simply pull people off of patrol. And just the impact of that, while it's difficult to gauge it financially, the safety impact in that, I think that we can all understand.
Well, Chief, I tell you, I have tremendous respect for you and the leadership of the Baltimore County Police Department. I'm certain that this management challenge will be met by you and your officers and your commanders, because I find it hard to believe that a private company will be able to produce more crossing guards at less money to the crossing guards than we can at better pay and better benefits. I'm just thinking to myself, how can that possibly be? And if it was, I can't help but wonder about the caliber of the people that'll be standing on the corner protecting our most valuable citizens, our children. So I would think that it's a management issue in terms of getting more people there and managing those people, making sure that they have a certain amount of time to call out. Maybe we have some rovers like your flex squad. Maybe we have some flex squad crossing guards. There has to be a better solution other than to pay more money to hire a private firm because we can't manage it ourselves.
Well, and I'll tell you, Councilman, we could not find another jurisdiction that the police department not only has to manage that crossing guard program, but is also responsible for filling in absentee spots with sworn police officers. So, certainly I'm sure that improvements can be made with the program, but the idea of putting in full service police officers, and when we look dollar to dollar, what these crossing guards get paid versus also what our officers are making an hour, it's simply not the best use of their time.
I'm sure you would agree that there's nothing more important than our children.
Absolutely.
And their safety.
For sure.
Okay. Any other members have any questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman Catch.
Yes, as I said before, I support the red light cameras on the cameras on the buses. And it has nothing to do with the revenues that may be generated from this particular program. But let me ask, Chief Hyde, what are the revenues going to be, let's say, if it goes in effect in September? What are the projected revenues for the program?
Nicole, projected revenues starting in September, what were the estimates? Was it 11 million? Is that off?
Correct. Those were the projections. I'm sorry for speaking for Nicole, but those were the projections if we were able to get all of the buses retrofitted and move forward on time.
And let me just say that if the program should go into effect a little later on, the statistics I've seen from other counties show that in the very beginning, the revenues are very, very high. And not that revenues are not the reason to do this. The reason is to protect our kids in school. So, this is not a program that is a loser as far as revenues go and expenses.
Madam Chair.
Jones.
Yes, I was also taken back because I guess I was thinking to myself, clearly we don't want people to run red lights and run these stop signs around the school buses and endanger our children. And I guess I was thinking to myself, well, how much money would it take for them to get the message that this is not good, right? So I'm looking at the bill that says that we can put a civil penalty on somebody as high as $500. And I'm thinking to myself, what I mean, right now, we have a situation where we have COVID-19, and to much of the credit of the county, we are giving away meals. We are giving away meals to the kids, meals to the families. We are doing our very best to help people during this very difficult time. But even in the best of times, a $500 ticket could send someone in a spiral that can end up with them and their families in a homeless shelter. Many people live in paycheck to paycheck, and many people's noses are just above water. And if someone made a mistake and went around a school bus just as they were putting the sign out, or 2 seconds before the sign went out, $500 could really ruin somebody.
So if I can jump in on two things. First of all, the assumption is that we anticipate that this would be a $250 fine. But part of the reason why this operates very similarly to the speed camera program is that there is a review process. So if somebody were to, let's say, go around a bus prior to that arm going out, they would not be issued that citation. If they were, it would be in their best interest to contest it, because that's part of the review process, to make sure that it is unquestionably an infraction before a citation is issued.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman.
Sure. Councilman Jones, I think Mr. Bostwick could correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that the fine mentioned in the bill it mirrors state statute, which limits local jurisdiction, chartered counties in the amount to which we may fine for certain civil infractions. So I believe that that would be the maximum that we could implement a fine, not necessarily what would actually be implemented. Is that correct, Mr. Bostwick?
That is correct.
Well, I do have my moments. And on another topic,
If I could, Councilman Crandall, let me just say this. If this bill is enacted, then the fine amount could be $500 without you or I ever having an opportunity to talk about it again. If we give permission for $500, then tomorrow you can wake up and that's what it'll be. We just had a conversation concerning the number of speed cameras. We were all under the impression that we passed a bill that said that there was a cap on the number of speed cameras. And here we are today debating because they're increasing speed cameras. So to me, it was irresponsible for us to pass a bill with a $500 fine unless we're okay with the citizens getting paid, being fined $500. And I apologize. Take it away, Councilman Crandall.
No, well, I was just trying to clarify where the language from the bill came out, and I do have something to say on another topic, but I want to hold up because it looks like Ms. Rogers and Mr. Blades have a response there.
My raise my hand button doesn't work on my computer. That's why I'm actually raising my hand. Councilmember Jones, it is indeed our intent to have the fine be $250. We benchmarked with other jurisdictions, and that was the prevailing amount. Clearly, if the language that is there, which Councilman Crandall, you are correct, it is mirrored from the state legislation. If that $500 amount in there is uncomfortable, then clearly you have the ability to amend that. But it is the administration's intent that it would be on par with the other jurisdictions who have this program, and our intent is $250. And with respect to the bus amount, I did ask that question early on, but we're going to get that in writing for you, what the maximum number was and what the additional 5 is within what was agreed upon, and we'll put that in writing to you, because we definitely had that discussion in advance.
Madam Chair, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that with fines and fees require any change if there's an increase in the fee, we have to send a 45-day letter to the council, the opportunity to have a hearing or accept it. And I do want to follow up on the number of speed cameras. I confirmed with staff downstairs between the last meeting and this meeting. We currently have 9 red light cameras and 36 speed cameras, which is currently the same number of speed cameras that were approved by the council. I asked about the 5 additional sites, and I was informed that it was not 5 additional cameras, it was 5 additional site locations for moving the cameras around, but it's not an increase above the 36 council-approved cameras. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blades, for that clarification.
Madam Chair, I'll jump back in on my other topic, and this is probably more relevant to the police department's budget hearing, which happened just previously to this work session, and that is the Chief Hyatt. I think that we are blessed with police officers in Baltimore County under your command that love locking up bad people. They love getting the bad guys and locking them up. And when you mentioned the sexual assault that occurred on an elementary school campus in my district, in fact, where I used to go to elementary school a long time ago, it had me, when it struck me, because I recalled the fact that I've mentioned before publicly that the suspect was not on the sex offender registry, had not committed a sex crime before, but was actually a convicted murderer and was out after 4 years serving a 30-year sentence. So I think one of the things that really hinders the work and really frustrates our police officers under the chief's command is our judicial system, I believe, is failing us. And it's something that's not talked about enough. But when you have a police department that closes as many cases as we close and clears as many cases as any other jurisdiction, I believe, in the country, when our judicial system does not have the punishment meet the crime, I think that's a problem. And I think a lot of our systemic crimes, going from burglary to the violence that we have, are all done by repeat offenders that have not been rehabilitated and just are not afraid of going to jail for the crimes that they commit. And there are plenty of anecdotes that I could share that I've learned from talking with police officers over the years that I've come in contact with. But I just wanted to state it once again, that I think that our judicial is a component of the system that is failing us, and it is not talked about enough by the council or our state legislature. So I'm going to leave it at that. And sorry I got on my soapbox, but it's something that I believe strongly in, and I think it does hinder our police department and frustrates them to a certain extent.
Thank you, Councilman Crandall. Councilman Quirk, I know you've had your hand up for a while.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to make sure I understand this again, can you briefly review again the cost to implement these cameras, and then the recovery time to recoup the cost? Just want to make sure I understand the details.
So in terms of the actual revenue that would be generated, it looks like the revenue is 11, but the estimated contractual cost is 7.7. As for specifics with time with recuperation, I'll leave that to Nicole.
I believe the expectation, of course, this is under circumstances that are beyond anyone's control, But if we're back in school for the normal year, the expectation was that it would pay for itself year one, I believe. If the school year is delayed, then that could have an impact.
But I mean, maybe this is a question for Ed Blades, is would all this cost be borne by the county up front?
No, I expect it to be fairly cost neutral. I mean, we have the authorization with the grant. We're setting this up as a grant in the police department budget. So the revenue from collection of the fines will go into offset. So I guess, yes, like any other grant, technically how it operates, that there'll be some initial costs that hit the grant, but then the revenues will catch up, and I expect it all to catch up within the first year. So I don't see the county being in a bad position. Delaying it will not have an impact on the general fund budget or the budget cuts that we're talking about. So it is set up as its own defined grant program in the special fund budget, just like the speed camera, and eventually will dictate what the expenditures will be out of that grant. But yes, there will be an initial setup cost, or we'll have expenditures prior to revenues coming in. But I don't have a clear timeline on that.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Pardon me. Do you know what the specific startup costs and I mean, I guess it would ultimately come from general revenues. Am I right on that? Do you know what type of dollar amount we'd have to put out? I mean, obviously it's going to take a little while to recover or recoup our costs, but do you know what the initial money we have to put out for this would be?
Off the top of my head, I do not, but I see Ms. Rogers has her hand up.
Ms. Rogers? Ms. Rogers, you have a comment?
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Councilmember Quirk, we can get the specific dollar amount, especially with respect to the retrofitting of the school buses, but the proposal is to have the cost of that carried out across it's a multi-year contract. That's the way Montgomery does it. And that's the way Howard County does it, that the cost, it wouldn't be front-loaded, that it would be carried out over the life of the initial contract, a multi-year contract. But we can get you the specific dollar amount, the year cost estimates on that.
And Ms. Rogers, if I could, who would actually review the camera footage itself? Would our police department be doing that, or would this private company be doing it, or how does that work?
That's where the police department piece comes in, but I'll let Chief Hyatt talk to you about that, because that's the divide where the police department piece comes in.
Absolutely. So our role, it has to be sworn law enforcement officers that evaluate and certify these citations. So if they're the infractions, the officers sit, they review the citation, they review the photos, and then they assess if it's a valid infraction, then they sign off on it as a citation. So that's the role that we have. It's a very tedious work, just like it is with the speed cameras, but it's an important role that has to be done by sworn law enforcement.
Madam Chair.
Councilmember Toka?
This is Tom Bostwick.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that, but I don't know if this would add anything, but I'm just looking at the budget analysis from your previous budget hearing with the police department, and it indicates on page 3 in Exhibit 3 that the school bus camera program in the special fund budget will be an additional $11 million, 1.139 million in personnel expenses, and 9.861 million in operating expenses, including the service contracts, professional services, vehicles, operational supplies, and other charges. So Councilman Quirk asked what the expense will be, and it looks like the expense is going to be $11 million.
Is that right, Director Blades, or is that right, Chief Administrative Officer Rogers? And I'm just really trying to understand what we're talking about here, and I'm having a little. Can you confirm or maybe maybe tell us if that's correct?
Madam Chair. The budget for the speed camera program is 11 million. It's not for the speed camera program itself, but for the grant that was set up. Obviously, we're projecting 11 million for revenue, so we're going to have expenditures. The contractor, we're estimating at 7 million, and the balance, or the difference of those funds, will be used for police department expenditures.
I have a question. I may have gotten lost in this conversation, but there have been 77 tickets written for passing a school bus. So at $500 a fine, if my math is correct, that's $38,500. How do we get to an $11 million program? Is this a combination of programs?
No, ma'am, it is not. It is based on the number of tickets that the estimated number of tickets in Baltimore County per day throughout the school year per the number of buses.
I didn't understand something, Ms. Rogers. I thought it was 77. Is it 77 tickets a day or 77 tickets total?
No,
What
and
Chief
I can
Hyatt,
clarify. Go ahead, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Chief Hyatt talked about in terms of the tickets that were issued were when officers were able to address the issue happening. We're looking at the experience of other jurisdictions and the number of violations a day. That's what the formula was based on. And
we only capture a fraction of how many times that happens.
Correct. Mr. West from the school system can tell you what the benchmarking was, but it was about 250 violations a day was the projected estimate based on the number of buses that we have on the roads. But let me defer and have Mr. West share with you how we came up with the revenue projections based on Montgomery County's experience as well as Howard County's experience. We only got 77 tickets because that's all we were able to get. But with this program, you get a higher percentage of the persons who violate this, who run the stop sign.
And I can understand that now, but I'm still having a hard time getting to an $11 million program.
Mr. West, can you share with Madam Chair how the projections that we used to come up with the $11 million?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, the $11 million is the result of basically a calculation that was done using Montgomery County's formula. So they looked at the number of vehicles they have on the road every day and the number of citations that they issue per day. It actually came up to a percentage. So we took that exact same percentage and multiplied that times our 800 buses that are on the road every day. So with that calculation, it comes out to be just around 248, as Ms. Rogers referenced. So if you take that 250 citations per day, that is a potential number, and multiply that times what we proposed, which is $250 per fine, that is what gives you the complete revenue for 10 months of vehicles for the school system year.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Jones.
Maybe I apologize. Maybe I wasn't paying a lot of attention. I don't know. Maybe I missed something here. I'm listening to the $11 million we're going to spend. I'm assuming that's for the installation of the cameras. I'm listening to it explained that a sworn police officer must review the tickets. So I'm just curious in my mind, and maybe I missed it. Why are we paying somebody $77.7 million to run the program? I mean, I don't know. I mean, we have a chief, we have colonels, we have captains. I'm just maybe I missed it. Where did the part come in that we're getting something for $7.7 million to a contractor? Did I miss that? Yes, Ed, the grant goes to the contractor?
Councilman,
what
clarify where we are right now. This legislation is just authorization, the approval for us to implement a program, and it's not the actual contract. The contractor for this will be similar to the red light or the speed camera program, where they'll be responsible for managing all the equipment. They will be processing and reviewing, well, they'll be reviewing all of the potential citations and identifying those which they believe may warrant a citation, which will then be forwarded to the police department for review, where they will do an electronic sign-off of the citation for it to be created. So, and then they'll do, I'm assuming they'll be responsible for all the mailing, second notices, and those sorts of things. So it's very similar to what we're doing currently with the speed camera program.
So as a follow-up, they're going to get $7.7 million for processing and reviewing and maybe some mailing, but no hardware.
And the hardware and software, yes.
I thought we were paying for that.
No, they'll be responsible for that. They'll be responsible for all of it.
Where does our $11 million go?
We have our $11 million in revenue goes to $7.7 million for the contract, and then we have additional equipment, and we have the Chief. I'm gonna let you chime in here. There's 2 units that you are establishing for mobile access to move around the county, which is not specifically school bus. It is an operating enhancement.
And that would be the discretionary team that we discussed previously to be able to deploy around the county. It would fund that as well as the officers and supervisor that are necessary to review all of these photos and certify these citations.
Madam Chair, may I be recognized?
Yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Rogers, of course.
So in essence, the program, as it's operating in other jurisdictions, is pretty much self-funded with some revenue above and beyond the operating costs that can be used to help and assist with what Chief Hyatt was just talking about, the 2 units. So the $11 million in revenue goes to cover the operating expenses with the contractor and the expenses that Chief Hyatt would have to operate the program. It runs very similar to way the red light camera program that we have now. That's why we've nestled it together. And then the revenue, it's a revenue generation piece that will help with some of the things that she is trying to do. The school system was fine with any revenues left over being used toward other public safety efforts. That's what the revenues have to be used for.
Absolutely, and that's what I was going to add, ma'am. Law, any additional revenue must be utilized for public safety.
Okay.
It's a self-funded program. It's not monies that we're paying, that the fees or the fines generate the revenues to run the program. That's how it runs in the other jurisdictions as well.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair.
First, Councilman Batoka, and then Councilman Quirk, and then Councilman Marks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one comment and one question. The comment relates to the fine, the amount of the fine, and whether we recover that. The amount of the fine to me is not an issue, because to me, whether it's 250, whether it's 500, whether it's 100, whatever that amount is, it's totally avoidable. And it's avoidable by not passing a school bus. In fact, I think it's preferred to slow down when you're near a school bus. And so let me just put that out there. But the question I have is, does it change behavior? And if it does change behavior, will that lead to a decline in revenues? So I know that we're projecting 11 million in year one, and if it's effective, then it should change behavior. And so in year two, will that 11 million be reduced? In year three, will it be reduced further? Or what is the experience of other jurisdictions? I guess that may be a question for Mr. West, but I think it would be viewed successful if it, at the end of the day, changes driver behavior.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Ms. Rogers.
I'll start, but you're absolutely right. Mr. West can share with you the benchmarking data. The objective is to change behavior. Councilmember Patoka, that's the school's perspective on it, that this is another way to address something that is still a problem in the county. With respect to the reduction in revenue based on behavior changing, that can be anticipated. But I would defer to Mr. West, who did all of the great benchmarking research for us when we first started this project, investigating this project back in the fall.
Thank you, Councilman Patoka. I would agree. The school system's objective is to change driver behavior. And that is why we would initiate with the police department, the public service announcements and so forth, to make sure the public is very aware of this program and school safety, safety around school buses. With regard to the impact of the citations, I can speak to Montgomery County in particular. Amongst our neighboring counties, they have been implementing this program the longest. And what they have seen is ideally you would see a decline in revenue. I've seen that, but the key benchmark here is the rate of repeat offenders is actually very low. So they are seeing that there's not a large number of vehicles that are repeat offenders. The majority, I believe it's 92 to 93% of the violations are first-time offenders.
So that would indicate to me that it in fact does change behavior.
Yes, it would indicate that, but of course we would use our own data to confirm that, but that is the data that Montgomery County has shared with us.
Thank you. Madam Chair.
Yes, Councilman Jones.
Yeah, because it sounds to me like we are operating on the assumption that people run around the school bus because they look at the school bus, the sign comes out, and they say, I don't care, I'm not going to stop. Now, I'm sure there's some percentage of people that may be that way, but I bet that there are some other people that just happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and some of them may even be distracted, that the bus stops and the light starts to flash yellow. Do I stop? Do I not? I'm on a 3-lane divided highway. I'm on a 2-lane divided highway. What do I do? Do I keep going? Do I not? I'm gonna hypothesize that everyone is not intentionally running around the school bus, but some people, whether they be distracted or just don't know what to do, find themselves maybe going around a school bus. Maybe when I think of Liberty Road, for example, it's clear if I'm on Deer Park Road, a 2-lane road, I should stop. But if I'm on Liberty Road and there's 4 lanes and the bus is in the other lane and I'm going in the opposite direction, do I stop there? If there's a guardrail in between us, do I stop then? I don't know. And I suspect there's a lot of drivers that don't know.
And Councilman, I think one of the things that's important, and Mr. West stated it earlier, is that the beginning of this rollout is very education-based, is a lot of PSA and publicity-based to make sure, yes, absolutely, when people took their test for their driver's license, that's certainly a part of it. But with us not making an assumption that people know all of this and that they may not need some refreshing, there would be a lot of opportunities to initially push that out But, you know, for those that might be distracted in an area where children are crossing the street, obviously that's a huge concern. So I think, you know, start with education and encouragement, but this is a significant tool that without question, even at $250 is a fine significant enough to change behavior. And it's about safety in the children.
Well, I would think that maybe some of the revenue should go to the Department of Social Services, because a $250 fine or $500 fine could certainly send somebody in that direction.
Councilman Quirk, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This definitely reminds me a little bit many years ago with speed cameras and does it change behavior? And well, when it did change behavior with speed cameras, then suddenly the county wanted to put more speed cameras everywhere because the contractors required a certain amount of minimum revenue to continue to run the program. And so a lot of times these contracts are designed where whoever's the speed camera or bus camera resource requires the county to have a certain minimum amount of revenue to be able to operate. And so it does remind me of speed cameras, and then suddenly all of a sudden, you know, the county wants to put more speed cameras everywhere because they have to meet a minimum threshold. So I think the contract itself would be interesting to look at. And also just thinking about the numbers, you know, we're really going to cover $11 million in expenses every year. You know, think about what that means. If it's $250 per person and we have 800 buses, it means 44,000 citations now we're going to give out per year that we're going to actually collect, 44,000. And then it means on average about 55 citations a bus per year. I mean, do we have the data that supports that? I mean, are there really 55 cars running buses a year? Maybe there are, but if there are, that's pretty that's a lot more than I realize. That's for sure. But you know, it leads to a lot more questions.
Okay, Councilman Marks?
Thank you very much. I'm going to piggyback on what Councilman Quirk said. You know, there are three of us left on this council from when we discussed speed cameras. It was one of the first things we talked about in January 2011. And like Councilman Quirk says, you know, the questions seem to always come back. You'll notice I'm not a sponsor of this bill, and it's just because I'm up in the air on this. You know, I have a lot of questions. Councilman Jones, I agree with you about the fees. And, you know, the council may get a letter about the fees going up, but, you know, we get a lot of correspondence. You know, it's very easy for us to miss a letter. I'm concerned about that, and I'm also concerned about what did the fees go for. When we were discussing the speed cameras, one of the things I asked the county attorney at the time was, could that money be devoted to actual improvements to stop speeding, and pedestrian improvements, traffic calming? And we were told no. I'm happy to see that some of this money is going to go for crossing guards, but you know, a lot of it just goes back to the contractor. So all I want to say is that this is very reminiscent of the same discussions we've had with speed cameras, and the fact that I think a lot of us feel the speed camera program is very open-ended.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. Councilman Quirk, you have to add something?
I guess, do we have the data that supports that there will be at least 44,000 of these citations that happen every year? Do we know from a data-driven perspective that this is a 44,000 at least occurrence every year with our? I mean, we got a lot of buses, 800 buses. I'm just trying to make sure that the assumptions and the data that we're using is something that we can rely on, because if not, all of a sudden, maybe this isn't paying for itself, and then all of a sudden now we have to get our police department involved too. And I'd also feel like, in a sense, maybe going into business, you know, running speed cameras and running bus cameras and everything else is maybe a good business model. That's tongue in cheek, but sometimes it makes me wonder.
Thank you, Councilman Quirk.
Madam Chair, one more point I would just like to add. I was just looking at I was trying to do some research on my own instead of waiting for the research to come. So I stumbled across NIOSH, National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration. And one of the things that struck me, they said, is 70% safer for a kid to be on a school bus than to drive to school in their parents' minivan. And then they go on to talk about school buses and when seat belts were installed in passenger vehicles and how come school buses don't have seat belts. And I'm just thinking of all of these other things we can do to protect children. How come it always boils down to coming up with a plan to collect money from the citizens and then turn around and hand it to a contractor?
Was that question directed to somebody?
Always in the name of safety, of course. Thank you. Listen.
Was that a comment or a question?
Well, I did not want to make it a question. I didn't want to put anybody on the spot. Everybody has a job to do. But I guess thought it was very interesting that I guess the question is, if we care so much about kids, did anybody else look at this NIOSH report? And did anybody else go out and advocate for seat belts on buses? And they're saying it's 70 times more likely that a kid is safer on a school bus than driving their own parent's car. So I was trying to get to how many kids are struck every year on or around school buses. But whatever that number is, it's safer to be on or near that school bus than it is in their parent's car.
Madam Chair, may I be recognized?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Jones, I have not seen the report that you are talking about, but I'm happy to review that. A couple of questions have been asked. The school system has approximately 856 buses and 800 routes. So just wanted to compare that in terms of number of buses. Maybe it was Councilmember Quirk who asked about that. And that was the formula, that's the number that was plugged in terms of the formula to come up with the number of citations. I would add that, Councilmember Jones, we looked at this program because other jurisdictions had the same program in place, and their best practice has been to have it managed just like the red light cameras or speed cameras in communities managed by a contractor. We were looking at best practices. I might add that Carroll County is also considering the same program. So the counties around us, Howard County has this program. Anne Arundel passed their legislation several months ago. The enabling the legislation to do it, they haven't, I don't believe they've implemented their program yet. But from the rationale of why we went this route, we were just following best practice that other jurisdictions have followed.
One more question.
Yes, Councilman Marks.
Very quickly. So we receive an annual report on the speed camera program. Will we receive any sort of report on this program?
Absolutely. We're more than willing to do that as well, Councilmember.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this bill? Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do real quickly, and I apologize if this has been answered or I should have seen this elsewhere, but I did not. The source of funds, as Mr. Blades said, is from a grant. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Not from a grant, it is the fines that are going into a special fund. So the fine revenue goes into the special, which we treat like a grant. That's how we treat the speed camera program.
Okay, I got it. All right, thank you.
Okay. All righty. I think, Chief, you can probably, you on the next one? You sure are.
Thank you, Madam Chair and council members for at least hearing our proposal.
Absolutely, Ms. Rogers. So now we can go to page 4 and take a look at Bill 4620, correct?
Care of that one. State folder error. I'm going to take care of that one.
Okay, all
Thank
right.
you.
All right, this one is a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $20,000, which has been made to the Baltimore County Police Department by the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention for fiscal year 20. It's a recruitment and retention grant. This request is for council's approval to accept and appropriate the $20,000 in this fiscal year funding as awarded by the Governor's Office of Crime Control and Prevention. The goal of the recruitment and retention program is to increase the number and diversity of candidates eligible for hire as a police officer. The county will provide monetary recruitment incentives for successful referrals of applicants for the position of county police officer within the police department. There is no need for matching funds from the county on this.
Thank you, Colonel. Are there any questions or comments from the members? That was easy, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, I got the easy one today. Thank you, folks.
Have a good day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, we have no fiscal matters, miscellaneous business. I guess we can go down to page 7. Resolution 50-20. Councilman Marks?
This is simply a correction to a resolution we passed, I believe, a month ago. Downtown Towson, the Towson Chamber of Commerce have been applying for Main Street status from the Department of Housing and Community Development, and the resolution we passed had the incorrect title of the program. So this is just a corrections resolution.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments for Councilman Marks? Okay, I think this concludes today's work session. No? And then we're going to move on to a...
Madam Chair.
Yes.
All right, so I'm still stuck in our bus camera. So if
You don't miss the bus, Mr. Crandall.
it wouldn't be the first time.
You've moved on,
Mr. Blades and Ms. Rogers are still with us. So,
Yes.
so
See them.
I'm going back to the source of funds for the yeah, right. Going back to the source of funds for the bus camera program. So it's a self-funding program, but we have to buy the stuff and execute the contract. Where does that money come, and when does it? So is that coming out of general fund? Whose budget does it come out of, and when does it come out?
I can start on that. Number one, we are not buying the equipment. We are the company who manages this project, who would manage the project, owns the equipment, installs it, maintains it, does all of that. The current proposal is that the school system would let the contract, and that the revenue would be coming and put into a grant program in the police department. That's where the revenue generation comes from, or would be going. But in terms of any upfront cost, anything that would have to be paid out in advance would be replenished out of the monies once the monies come back in. And where I'll have to defer to Mr. Blades as to where that would be, but it would be repaid just like anything else. You would have to advance until your revenues come in.
Okay. Should I keep going, or Mr. Blades, you wanted to chime in? You were just.
I think
sufficient.
Unless you have additional questions, I think that's sufficient.
Well, I mean, I guess more of a statement in that I understand the concerns that I believe Councilman Quirk brought up, and it does harken back. I wasn't on the council when the speed camera program was voted upon and implemented, but I will steal a little bit of the chairwoman's lines over the years that we sort of became, the county, when I say we, got addicted to this revenue stream. And it seemed, and speed cameras started to become not the deterrent that was used to sell the program in the first place, but a revenue generator, which is why we all believe that the cameras keep moving on us. And the police department is not on the line here to defend their practices there. So I really don't want to go there. But I mean, this sort of seems like, you know, one of those deals, and maybe this is the best way to construct it. I'm not sure, but it seems like one of those deals. We'll give you the stuff, we'll implement it, it'll become paid for on its own for the people that need to do stuff on your end, but we're going to give the equipment in return for 70% of the revenue generated. And now the company that is running this program is now incentivized to go after our constituents in an aggressive way, because the more money they make. I mean, it sounds like speed cameras a little bit, sounds like towing a little bit, sounds like, and so this could be just another one where we're sort of getting into this sort of this trap. And okay, we want to change driver behavior. I'm all for that. But once the behavior shows that it's going to be changed, then what do we do to answer Councilman Jones' concern? What do we do when that revenue goes missing? How are we going to go replace it? Do we increase the fines then? Do we add more cameras? So it can be slippery. I'm in favor of the program itself because I personally have witnessed, living next to a school, I personally witnessed too many times people ignoring that stop sign and going through. And whether people know whether to stop or not, ignorance is not an excuse to break the law, and that's not from me. That's from a fine Republican named Oliver Wendell Holmes. So I will leave that as it is, but just expressing concerns about this program and how we're going about implementing a viable program, perhaps in a convoluted way. So.
Thank you, Mr. Crandall. And since you brought us back in, I will ask the
Sorry about that.
I will ask the question to Mr. Blades. So is this bucket of money going to Baltimore County school systems or to the police department?
To Baltimore County Police Department.
Baltimore County Police Department. Okay. All righty. All righty.
Madam Chair, the school system agreed with that, especially to help augment the crossing guard piece, and those are the pieces of the revenue that we tried to look at in its totality. The school presented this and worked with us from the safety perspective altogether. It was not based on a revenue generator. It was based on safety.
Okay. Well, that would probably take back to why the school cameras on when schools are closed right now. So that's like an ongoing conversation all the time. Okay, so we're going to finish up with this and we're going to move right on into a legislative session. We all good with that? We ready to move on?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman Quirk.
Just really quickly, I was just actually trying to dive into some data and looking at United States Department of Transportation NHTSA study, just reading about some of this issue. And some of these studies say that these school bus incidents where cars are passing school buses on average per survey might be at least one incident per bus per day. So just looking at the math, if there's 180 school days, there's a potential 144,000 violations. You put like $50 per violation, that's 7.2 million. You put $100, that's 14.4 million. So in other words, if we're doing 250, we might be a lot higher than what we need to. So it's probably a break even versus the calculation that could be a lot lower than the 250. But this is the type of data I think that would be helpful to make decisions. Like, give us more like, okay, well, what are the statistics? Like, what are we really looking at? How big of a problem is this? At what point do we break even? At what point are we making money? Like, all those things would be helpful to try to make better decisions.
Thank you, Councilman Quirk.
Madam Chair,
Councilman.
one last question. Does any of the revenue go towards educating children how to behave on and around the school bus? Any additional training for the children?
I don't think anyone, Mr. West is no longer on the line, I don't think. He is
I
not.
don't believe anything is earmarked for educating students.
Did you say no? There is none?
I don't believe so. No, that I'm aware of.
Right, the initial upfront education, the way it is set forth right now is geared toward drivers. That is the plan, but we're happy to take that feedback to the school system on the education side.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
oh Lord. Okay, Councilman Patoka.
I would this is just a casual observation from being involved with schools, from the speed awareness initiative that our office engages in, is that school kids are really excited to get out of school. And so they are ready to run, they're ready to be with their friends. And so I think that we just have to realize that that is the nature of being a child, is that you're excited, especially, I know I was when the school day was over, and that drivers need to be careful, and we need to do what we feel is appropriate to make sure that these excited children that are getting out of school are safe. And so it's just my observation. One other thing I'll just say while I'm speaking is, I don't know what happened to this. When I was a kid, there was a thing called a safety. And the safety would be a peer of the students who would help other younger kids cross the street.
They still
have them?
On the school property, they have safeties.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
I know I was heartbroken in the 3rd grade when I didn't make the safety squad.
Oh. We're sorry.
I was captain of the state safeties at Norwood Elementary, Izzy. I beat on that.
You got me on that.
I was a little confused, Councilman Patoka. Are you saying that because kids are excited, we should not teach them to not play in the street and how to cross the street because they're excited to get out of the school, that they'll just willy-nilly run all around the community? I'm a little.
No, I'm not saying that at all, Councilman. I'm just saying kids are kids, and we should do the best to educate them in a well-rounded way. But at the end of the day, they're kids, and they get excited, especially recess and getting out of school.
Okay.
Councilmember Jones, your points are well taken, and again, we'll take this back to the committee that worked on this together, and I'll definitely let Mr. West know.
Okay, thank you. Because I was just thinking to myself, we spend a lot of time trying to educate the parents, and we're going to find the parents. We're forgetting that the kids can use a little additional training too, perhaps. But either way, we certainly don't want to see any kid get hit by a car.
It's a fair enough point, Councilman Jones. I was just thinking that kids and all of us, adults as well, right now, we've changed our behavior. We're all washing our hands more than we ever did. And, kids have been taught that. And so there's always room for more education for all of us.
Okay, thanks everybody for your input, and this work session is officially over. And we are going to continue now with a special legislative meeting. That's me tapping my gavel. Legislative day number 12 will now come to order. Please pause for a moment of silent meditation. And I suggest that time be spent thinking of those who have been affected by COVID-19. Thank you, everyone. I will now call on Councilman Marks to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I forgot my flag. We'll just pretend there's a flag. To the flag of the United States of America.
Public stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
This special legislative session is convened for the purpose of introducing emergency legislation at the request of the administration in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This legislation will be voted on at our next legislative session, which is May 21st. You will also vote shortly on an emergency measure. Mr. Secretary, will you now read all bills for introduction?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill 55-20, CARES Act Title III Funding Emergency Measure, and Bill 56-20, Coronavirus Relief Fund Emergency Measure.
Thank you. The council will now consider a bill for final reading and vote. Mr. Secretary, can you please read the bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill 49-20, entitled Baltimore County COVID-19 Small Business Relief Grants Program Emergency Measure.
Thank you. And is Mr. Will Anderson with us?
Yep, I'm here, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Oh, hi, Mr. Anderson. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Very good. Would you care to testify on Bill 49-20 for us?
Absolutely. Thank you for supporting this bill. The purpose of the bill is to allow our department to more rapidly deploy these grant funds for qualifying small businesses and artists that have been impacted by COVID-19. As you all know, we developed this program and opened up applications yesterday. Thank you all for helping us promote. We're seeing applicants coming in from across the county, and we know your offices have helped reach all these small businesses. So thank you. The funds allow for up to a $15,000 grant for these impacted businesses. These are ones who have not otherwise received federal or state funds. So we're targeting very small businesses that have been excluded from the initial relief packages. The legislation that I want to thank Mike Field for helping craft in the Department of Law just helps us accelerate our process, leaving all of our due diligence in place that we would normally do for a 14-day notice of our grants. What we're doing in lieu of a 14-day notice so that we can speed up getting these monies out to the affected businesses is to maintain a log of all of our grantees, which will include, not just who the business is, why they got the grant, how much, but it'll be councilmatic by district. So we'll be able to show exactly where we are across the whole spectrum as we get these grants out. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for encouraging your businesses to apply. And we'd like to continue to have people apply. The program opened yesterday and is still open. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Can you tell us how many people have applied thus far?
Well, it's a bit of a moving target. We opened yesterday at 9 a.m. We've had hundreds of people start the application. Sometimes people come back to their applications. But we're on target with where other jurisdictions have been. Most folks see 100 to 300 applications come in per day, and we're right in that same target range. And some of it just depends on if people have their documents ready to go or if they need to return after they realize they missed something. So we don't quite have the data yet, but we launched on time. The system is working. We still have some folks who are disappointed that they don't qualify, and I know some of you are hearing from those folks. But the county has announced a new program earlier today that helps nonprofits, and we're seeing other programs pop up out there to help hit folks who don't qualify for our program. So it's going well. We're in the flood of sorting through them and taking them through all of our due diligence of making sure all the data is there, making sure they qualify, making sure they're a county-based business, taking them through our law and our Office of Budget and Finance procedures like we would normally do for any grant.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Councilman Quirk had his hand up first for a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Director Anderson. I mean, I definitely think, given these tough economic times, small businesses clearly the lifeblood of the local economy, and keeping these small businesses afloat or giving them a bridge to the other side might make a difference, especially for some of these really smaller companies out there. And they also help with the multiplier effect of maybe eventually when things get a little better, maybe they can hire one more employee or two more employees, or So hopefully this is money well spent. I know it's money from the feds that we're utilizing, which I think is great. One question, Director Anderson, I've been getting is some businesses only have one employee, like themselves. And so I know for sure I've gotten emails from people asking if you're a company but you don't have any employees, can you still qualify? I think the answer is no, but I wanted to ask you and then just ask for an explanation just so I can relay that back to a couple of the different emails I've been getting.
Sure. And we've gotten that question as well with sole proprietors and I have multiple locations. And so the parameters are that you must have between 2 and 25 employees. And that was probably our most difficult term and condition to arrive at. We needed to establish some basis for who are the smallest employers that we can help here and where can we spread the money and do most impact. So I know folks who have no employees or one employee or too many employees are disappointed, but we needed to set those terms in order to try to hit our biggest target range. And these questions are on the site. As you go to the website, you can find that from baltimorecountymd.gov/smallbizfund, or you can find it from baltimorecountybusiness.com, and you'll see that we keep updating the questions that came in with new answers. I know our open question period has ended, but that's one, Councilman, that we've heard numerous times that people wanted to see, or if there's another program that the county does in the future, can we extend it and modify it so that they would be included?
Thank you, Councilman Quirk. Councilman Marks?
Thank you. Will, thank you for the good work your department is doing and the good work the administration has been doing as well. I guess I have a very simple question. So these grants represent a well-needed bit of good news, and all of us have been involved with struggling businesses in our district. Why should we have to wait so long to find the identity of businesses in our district that are benefiting from this program? I mean, why in the world can't we find the businesses benefiting, within a week or within 2 weeks? Why do we have to wait 90 days under this bill?
Well, I think the target was to give us time to actually execute it well without making mistakes. You see it at the state and the federal level. People have returned relief packages because they were inappropriately received. We don't think that's going to happen here because we're doing such due diligence on the front end. But please understand, we're setting up 2 programs here for the business and the artists that did not exist. We've built 2 technical systems, one that receives applications and one that allows us to do the processing of those applications, tying it back into the county's applications, where we're trying to maintain all of our due diligence from fiscal, from legal, and make sure that we're getting these grants out to people. So our focus is just on doing it exceedingly well and then turning our attention to reporting out to you as quickly as possible. So the 90 days was just to give ourselves room to execute it well. When we were setting up this program, that was a number that we picked so we could give ourselves time to finish it well before we reported to you and made sure we were accurate.
Would you be able to at least tell us how many have applied in our district? Can we get the news a little faster than 90 days?
Yeah, we absolutely will get it to you the moment we can. We have no interest in holding that information back. It's just a matter of putting our attention to doing the work versus running the report. So I do pledge to you, Councilman, we will get it to you the day we can. We're not waiting until a 3-month period or something like that. We want to get it to you when we have it completely accurate.
Okay, and thank you again for all your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Anderson, do you think it would also be possible if we got a breakdown of how many businesses in each district applied when it's over? I'd be very curious to know how many folks reached out in my district.
We are going to break it down district by district, Councilwoman.
Okay, thank you.
As soon as we completed the application from me last night.
I'm sorry. I don't know who was speaking. I didn't catch it.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman Jones.
Yeah, I was just curious. Matter of fact, I just got a phone call from a local business owner, and I was telling them to call me later. I was on a conference call, and she was saying that she's having problems with the application, submitting the application, and she was calling all day today, and there was no answer. So I'm just curious, who do I tell her to call, Mr. Anderson?
Yep, that's a great question. So please direct all the questions into our system, which are coming in via email. They're not coming in via call. We don't have staff that can pick up calls because they're processing these applications, and it would be a conflict of interest. So the email address is COVID. Let me make sure I get it right here.
Julian, I have the email address, but my application is in limbo because it's saying it's a computer issue, an IT issue.
She said that she had the email address, but it's an IT issue.
I'm afraid I can't answer her question independently, particularly in the middle of this council meeting.
Right.
But she can send any question to the email account for us to address individually, and that is at COVID Biz Relief. So it's COVIDBIZRELIEF at BaltimoreCountyMD.gov, and I'll copy that and put that right in the notes here.
Okay.
And thank you, Councilman. I know your staff has been sharing that with people as the go-to for all questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
I apologize for that.
Thank you for bringing your constituent into the legislative meeting. That was awesome. Any other council members have a question or comment for Mr. Anderson? Okay, I know that we do have an amendment for this bill. So, Mr. Bostwick, would you like to speak on the amendment?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. There is an amendment to the bill sponsored by council members Quirk and Jones. This amendment would, as we know, the council is being asked to, in effect, waive the 14-day reporting requirement that is made to the members when grants are set to be issued. And this waiver continues for 60 days after the end of the state of emergency, and the reporting requirement that Mr. Marks alluded to allows for up to 90 days after the state of emergency has ended for that log of grants issued to be sent to the council. And so what this amendment is, it seeks to tighten that up a little bit by changing the 90-day to 30 days. So there would be about a month's reporting allowance, and it would also strike 60 days after, so that this 14-day waiver would end at the conclusion of the state of emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Bostwick, and I believe that's been consistent with what we've done with the other.
That's correct, Madam Chair. In fact, on the donations bill that you passed last month, the reporting requirement is also within 30 days after the state of emergency.
Thank you. Are there any members that have any questions or comments about the amendment?
I'll move the amendment.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Mr. Secretary, can you please call the roll on the amendment to Bill 4920?
Mr. Quirk?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins?
Aye.
Mr. Patoka?
Aye.
Mr. Catch?
Aye.
Mr. Marks?
Aye.
Mr. Crandall?
Aye.
The amendment to Bill 49-20 has passed. Are there any other questions or comments on the bill itself as amended? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Madam Chair, I'll move it as amended.
I'm sorry, Councilman. Thank you so much. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you guys for keeping me on track. Secretary, please call the roll on Bill 49-20 as amended.
Mr. Quirk,
Aye.
Mr. Jones,
Aye.
Mrs. Bevins,
Aye.
Mr. Crandall,
Aye.
Mr. Marks,
Aye.
Mr. Catch,
Aye.
Mr. Patoka.
Aye.
Bill 49-20 is passed as amended. Mr. Anderson, thank you for all your work. Please give your best to all your staff on behalf of the county council for doing this work on behalf of the business owners in Baltimore County, both small and large.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There's been, Chris McCollum's been running point on a lot of this project, and he counted up how many people have been working on this program, and it's in the 40s of people, not just in our department and planning and law and OBF and obviously IT, but now council as well. So, I mean, there's real businesses at the end of the line that are going to get helped by this. So we greatly appreciate the council's support of this program. It's a good one.
I think I can speak for everyone. Any relief we can give to these small businesses to keep them stay afloat, because I fear so many of our favorites may not come back unless they have some kind of help, whether it's from local or federal government. So thank you for your efforts, and thanks to the administration for all the work that they've done on this.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry. Councilman Jones?
Yeah, I just wanted to just take this opportunity to echo what you said and thank Mr. Anderson and his team and everybody who participated. This is a very worthwhile program, grant, and I was very happy to share that information everywhere I can. And it's good to see that Baltimore County is stepping up and doing what it can to help people. My question was, and I guess I think I understand, but one of the things I read about the program was that if a person were to do everything in their power to stay afloat, but at the end of the day, if they did in fact succumb to extreme economic conditions and they were not able to stay in business, they would have to pay this money back?
Oh. Good question.
Mr. Anderson?
Yep, Councilman, we've tried to be extremely generous in the way we approach this from the front end. So we're allowing businesses that have already applied for other relief programs but not heard back, not received any monies. We've allowed them to come in, and we've tried to limit the recourse within reason for folks taking in dollars that where the business has already failed. So what we've done is we've tried to be as nimble as we can because we know how fragile our businesses are, but we do have some recourse built into this program.
That answer your question, Mr. Dent?
Yes, it does. I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Anderson? Okay, Mr. Secretary, is there any further business to come before the council?
There is no further business, Madam Chair.
Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So.
All in favor?
Aye.
This legislative session meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We'll see you.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, Tiny Tim.
Bye.
Good night.